So today, go to Tuesday the 25th, period 8. Okay, I've had some confusion about this. This link right here, this is the assignment you've already have finished. The only reason I put it in there is I've had some people that have not been in any live sessions, and I wanted to make sure that if something happened and they couldn't find it, it was there, okay? But when we are done, this is where you're going to submit it. If you click on that button where it says here, it's going to take you to the submission for the assignment. But we're not going to do that yet because I want to go over it first and make sure we're all on the same page, okay? So do not start the assignment yet, okay? But I do want you to have it up on your screen. So please go to Notability and make sure that is up on your screen right now. The assignment from Thursday that I mentioned that we were going to discuss today, okay? So please make sure that is there. All right. This is the assignment I'm talking about. We did the first half of this together. You are supposed to finish this, and we were going to come back together and talk about it today. If you forgot to do it, you're in luck for today because we're going to have time to go over it. But as we get into the class, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be going over everything in class together. And the due dates are going to be, the expectation is going to be there. I know that, when our class meets Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm trying not to overwhelm you so that you have to have everything done by Friday, which is why I gave you extra time. But moving forward, we're going to try to be consistent with that Friday deadline. So going back to what we talked about on Thursday, we went through the first 4, 5, or 6 of these, looking at the maps that are here at the bottom. Okay, you had to make sure you knew where the colony was. They were numbered. And so you may have had to go back to look at the top here to see which colony was which. And then you had to identify their growing season. So for example, Connecticut, which is number 3 here on the map right here, that had a very short growing season and a very bad soil. Short growing season, bad soil. I realized that I had these mixed up. That's all right. I'll fix that. Here we go. And then the landforms were rocky and hilly. So this would have been a 1 all the way across. And you would have done that for all of these. What we're going to do is we're going to go back through and we're going to work on making sure this far right column is accurate. Okay. So I'm going to have you all chime in if you can and tell me when we get through here. So we already know Connecticut. And again, if you're wondering what the guidelines were for this, this is what we looked at. So if 2 out of the 3 indicators, growing season, soil, and landforms, were bad for farming, which means you wrote down a 1 2 different times for a colony, it's considered to be a poor place for farming. Okay means there's only 1 out of the 3 that are bad for farming, or 2 out of 3 are just okay. So if it's kind of in the middle across the board, that's going to be okay. Good for farming is none out of the 3 are bad, and presumably they're all 3s, or 2 out of the 3 have a 3 indicator on them. Okay, so I'm not trying to confuse you with that, but that's more or less what I'm referring to here. So let's go back to the assignment. This should be up on your screen as we go through here, okay? We know Connecticut's a 1, so we're going to write a 1 down for here. Okay, let's go to the next one, Delaware. What should we write down for Delaware? You tell me.
2.
Okay, we should have a 2 here for Delaware. And all of this, the number here on the right that we're writing down should be determined by what you have here already in these boxes. Okay. What about Georgia? What should we have down for Georgia for farming?
3.
3 is correct. Okay. Georgia is the furthest to the south of the colonies. Overall has a longer growing season, good soil, and the landforms are flat. You have to have flat landforms for farming, guys. You don't see a lot of people growing crops on the side of a mountain, okay? Let's go to Maryland. What should be in place for Maryland? 1, 2, or 3?
3.
Yep. And Maryland is kind of hard to determine in some ways because the map doesn't sync up perfectly where the colors are, but that should be a 3. And remember, we took 2 different maps and we put them on top of each other, which is why that's the case. What about Massachusetts? What do we think of for Massachusetts?
1.
Yeah, it's very similar to Connecticut. Connecticut and Massachusetts, their borders touch for in terms of where they're located. Okay. What about New Hampshire?
1.
I would agree as well. Okay. Again, if you look at the map, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut are all close to each other. So that you're seeing a consistency in their farming ability. What about New Jersey? New Jersey, what should we have here?
2.
We should have a 2 here. Okay, kind of in the middle area. Not great for farming, not bad, but it's across the board okay. What about New York?
1.
Yeah, I agree. 1. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. We need to go back here. I jumped the gun here. Why are we thinking 1 here? Somebody tell me. Why do we think 1 on this? Let's go back to the map here. Okay. We have a little bit of dark green. Okay, if you don't know where we are here, by the way, this is New York right here, number 5. Okay. Okay. So we have 3 to 5 month growing season. We also have some 5 to 7 month growing season in the western part of the colony, northern part of the colony, and all this down here. One thing you can't forget is that New York City, which is basically right here, that includes part of the colony as well as this area which is called Long Island. Okay, so you have to look at the colony as a whole, and this one's a little bit misleading. But for New York here, we have to put down 2. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have a little bit of the cream color, we have a little bit of the dark color, and we have a little bit of the light color. So we have all 3 represented here. If we have all 3 represented, we probably have to kind of come to an agreement somewhere in the middle. So that would be a 2 as well for New York. And then if we look at the last one, you see here we have a little bit of rocky hills and we have a little bit of coastal plain, but we also have some mountain range. There's a little bit of all. There's some flat area here and some rocky area. Even if we make this a 1, these other categories are 2. So we have to kind of look at this, and this is one of the harder ones to determine. So if we go back to the top here, we have to kind of make a judgment call about New York because of the fact that its location is very close to New Jersey. And for this one, we're going to put a 2. And the reason why, again, is if we go back to the indicator of how we determine good, bad, or okay, is New York's kind of right hanging in the middle there, okay? There's only really one bad indicator for their farming, and that's, you could say it's kind of a rocky terrain overall. Let's go to North Carolina. What do you think for North Carolina?
3.
Yeah, 3. Definitely. It's a southern colony in the southern part of the state, or the southern part of the colonies. Remember, when we're looking at the location, we're talking about location 11 here, further to the south. Let's go to Pennsylvania. What do we think on Pennsylvania?
2.
Yeah, I would agree with 2 as well. You know, Pennsylvania is kind of a mixed bag overall, especially when you look at number 6 here. You really see a lot of multiple different landforms here. And so again, when you have so many multiple ones, you have to kind of average it out. And in this case, 2 is the only one that would really work there. What about Rhode Island? Rhode Island.
1.
Yeah. Rhode Island is this really tiny colony. It's the tiniest state we have today. But again, look at its proximity to these other colonies we've discussed. 1 is New Hampshire, 2 is Massachusetts, 3 is Connecticut. So 4, Rhode Island has very similar characteristics to the other 3 in this region. Okay. Let's go to South Carolina.
3.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, if South Carolina is below North Carolina, okay, again, if you think about your cardinal directions here, here's North Carolina. South Carolina has to be underneath that. So it has to have a similar characteristic in terms of geography. All right. And lastly, Virginia. Virginia is here, number 10 on the map.
2.
Okay. Anybody else have a different answer or another suggestion too on this one?
I have 2.
Okay. Let's look at how we could have come to 2 and why 2 would not exactly work here. Okay. Here's part of the reason why. Let me, hold on a second here. Trying to get rid of my drawings here. Oh, it's all right. We'll go back to it. Okay. So when you look at growing season here, we have kind of across the broad range of short to long, depending on where you are here. So Virginia, even if you put a 2 here for Virginia, let's look at here. All right, Virginia, and guys, we're not looking at West Virginia here. West Virginia is not even a state right now. The reason why it shows up here, I know, and I'm not trying to confuse anybody, is we took an outline map of the current U.S. states and laid it on top of a physical map. All right, let's face it, you know, the Appalachian Mountains, which is going through, you know, right through this area here, that's causing a natural barrier for people in terms of where they're living. And I'll show you a better map in just a minute. So in terms of this map, it says most fertile. So we would have put a 3 there. And let's look here. We have coastal plain and Piedmont, the best possible scenario for farming, which would have been a 3. So 2 out of the 3 categories, soil and soil and landforms, are the best you can get. And even this one is not a 1. So from that indicator and going by what the PowerPoint was telling us, we have to make Virginia 3 here. I can understand how a 2 you could see that as a 2, but if you go back and look at what it's telling you in terms of how you have to identify them, 3 sounds a little bit more like it would work a little bit better here. Okay, so here's what we're doing here, and I'm right here where it says farming ability. What I'm doing is I'm going to write down all the colony names that I've listed as a 1 for farming, as a 2 for farming, and as a 3 for farming. So here we go. We have here New Hampshire. We have Massachusetts. We have Rhode Island. What am I missing here?
Connecticut.
Connecticut. So those are the 4 colonies I've identified as having a poor location for farming. Okay. And then here are the colonies that would be considered okay. We have New York. We have New Jersey. We have Pennsylvania. What needs to go here?
Delaware.
Yep. Okay. Now, process of elimination tells us we have 5 left, and those 5 should be the column over here that we identified as good. So we have Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Now let's take a look here what we have. We have used 3 different maps with different variables to identify 3 different groups of colonies based on their farming ability. Now, does anybody have any questions before we transition to explaining what this is all about? Okay. So let's go back to the map that we just worked on. Okay. We just worked on these. We identified the map, the colonies based on farming ability, and we categorized them. Now we need to look at level 4 thinking, predictions. Predictions are at best educated guesses, because a lot of times we don't have all the information we need, but we need to make an assumption. And so what we're looking at here is how these colonies may differ. We've already identified how they differ by their farming ability. Okay, so let's take a look here. So on this map, what is the key telling us? The key is telling us that we have 3 different groupings of colonies. New England colony, which is in green, middle colonies, which are in yellow, and the southern colonies in purple. And if you look at what is on your map or on your chart, they should be the same. They should be the same colonies that you have listed for poor, okay, and good. And they are. Now, what we have here is we have the historical or geographical way in which we identify colonies. So you may have heard about the 13 colonies. You may have learned about it in elementary school in 5th grade a little bit. But what we have here is the way that geographers and historians refer to these colonies. I mean, look right here. Look at the title of this map. It says the 13 colonies, and it's a National Geographic map. So this is an accurate way of describing the colonies. They're grouped in 3 ways. And the fact that we have 3 different groupings should tell you a lot about the fact that these colonies are different. Okay, because if they were all the same, what would be the point of having 3 different names for them? If they were all the same, we would just list them as such, as 13 colonies, the 13 English colonies. Okay, and that's what these are. These are English or British colonies. And the reason why we're talking about that is that these are the colonies that will become the original 13 US states. And I think a lot of you already know this, okay? So let's take a look here at this next part. Based on their geography, what are some ways the colonies might develop differently? So let's look at this indicator right now of where will most people live. Well, you look at the map and you tell me where the majority of the people live according to the map. Where are the majority of the people living? Look at the dots on the map. According to the key, the black dots represent towns or cities. So where are those dots located primarily? Somebody chime in for me.
The New England colonies.
Okay, well, you do see, it does appear that we do have more colony or more cities or towns here. We do have some spread throughout the middle colonies and the southern colonies. But if you look at the picture as a whole, where are these dots located primarily? If you look all across all three regions, where do you see them located primarily?
The coast.
Yeah, they're located along the coast. Look down here in the southern colonies. You have Charleston. It's now called Charleston, South Carolina. It was originally called Charlestown. That was after the king. You have Savannah, Georgia. You have New York City. Sorry. You have New York City, Boston, Massachusetts. Those are cities we know of. Those are all located along the coast. Now, there's a couple that are not. Okay, Hartford, Connecticut, which is in the green right here, that's located along a river. But the majority of them are on the coast, but all of them are located near water. You have to be near a water source. I mean, look, nobody's living here. That wouldn't make any sense. If I'm an English colonist, I'm not living there. Now, yes, there are numerous Native American tribes living here, okay? But for the majority of people, they're living on the coast. Why do they need to live near the coast? What's the reason for living near the coast or living near a major river?
They have water for plantation.
Okay, they need to have a water source. That's one, definitely. What about if you are living up here in the New England region and you're not a tremendously big farmer? What are you going to do then? What does being near the water do for you? What does that do for you?
Fishing and hunting.
Trade route.
Trade routes. Sorry, I heard trade routes. I heard fishing and hunting. Absolutely. Okay. You have to be able to be near the water because let's face it, all of your trade and all your transportation, they can't take boats 20 miles inland. All right. So if I'm expecting goods that are being traded from Boston, Massachusetts, and I need them to go down to Jamestown, I need to be near the water. Okay. If I'm coming from Europe or coming from England and I'm sailing to New York City, I need to be near the water. I need to be near harbors, ports. And, it's going to be important. And this is where the majority of people are going to live. The majority of the people are going to be living on the eastern part of right along the coast. They have to be able to be there because that's where they get goods. That's where the transportation is. That's where the ships are coming in, all that. And if you're a hunter and you have, something that you've hunted that you need to transport to a different colony, it's easiest to do that along the coast. Okay. So we have a good sense of indication now with assignment 1. We just completed that. So by the end of today, please submit assignment 1. But before we move on, let's talk about what we're doing tomorrow. So everybody go to my Canvas page, please. And what I want you to do is I want you to click on tomorrow. So today is the 25th. Tomorrow is the 26th. So this is where you need to be, right here. Okay. Click on the 26th. I click on period 8. Okay. What am I doing tomorrow? You may be asking yourself. Well, today, meaning to the 26th, you'll be working on part 2 of the assignment. Yesterday, during our live sessions, which is what we're doing now, we went over part 1 together, which is what we did. Part 2 relates to what each region of the original 13 colonies did for their economy. Economy is all about how you make money. Ask yourself this question. If I live in New Hampshire, am I realistically going to be able to make a living farming? No. We've already determined that because of what the map is telling us. New England region is a poor place for farming. Which region am I most likely going to be someone who farms for a living? You tell me. Which region? New England, middle, or southern? Which one?
Southern.
Southern, because it's the best place to farm. So think about it. Let's say it's 1700 and I'm a farmer. What is the likelihood that my descendants 100 years later will be farming on the same land that I'm farming on? It's a pretty good opportunity or pretty good option that that's going to happen. Okay. So when we talk about making money, we're talking about economy. So what we're going to do for part 2 is this. I'm going to give you an introduction to this so you have it there. You can access it now or you can access it tomorrow. But this is what it's going to look like. There's your 13 colonies map divided into 3 regions that you've already seen. All you're going to do is familiarize yourself with referring to these colonies by region, which is why you're going to write them down. This part's going to be relatively easy. And then you look at question 3. Question 3 says, think about basically what we talked about yesterday, with part 1, which is what we just finished. And compare each category of the farming ability to the colony. So think about it this way. Are the colonies that we refer to as poor for farming the colonies in the New England region? Yes. Are the colonies that we refer to as mediocre or okay for farming the middle colonies? Yes. Are the colonies that we refer to as good for farming the southern colonies? Yes. So all 3 of these should be bubbled because they're the same. The New England region is not good for farming. The middle region is okay for farming. The southern region is good for farming. You'll scroll down and you have 3. I know there's a lot of maps here, folks, but we're doing geography. That's why we're going to have a lot more maps now than as we get into this into the class. These are called resource maps. Why are they called resource maps? Well, look at what the key is telling you. These are resources: cattle, fish, fur, grain, iron, lumber, rum, ships, whales. Ship means ship building ships. Okay, so this is the resource map for New England. Scroll down. This is the resource map for the middle colonies. You'll notice that there's some similarities and some differences. Then you'll go down to the southern colonies. Resource maps. So what am I using these resource maps for, you may ask? We'll go down to the last page. Again, you are doing this tomorrow in preparation for our live session on Thursday. Use the maps I just showed you to complete the resource chart. Okay, so let's do one together so we have a feel for this. Cattle is the resource. I'm going to look at the New England map. Cattle's on the key, so I know it's here. Counting up how many I see. I see 1, I think I see 3 there. 1, 2, 3. I don't have to worry about the cattle being out in the ocean, so that's not a problem. So obviously, I see 3. So if I go back down to the bottom, for cattle, I'm bubbling in 3. You may ask yourself, what if I don't see one of these resources in a region? Let's take, for example, indigo, which is a dye. It's a color that's used to apply to clothing. It's like a bluish purple color. Let's go here. Do we see indigo on the key? No. So that tells me indigo is not something I'm going to find in New England. So I can leave it blank. You don't have to bubble them in if there's no resource in that region, okay? So that's what you're going to do for that part. And then the last part is this. This is the prediction level 4. Now that you have categorized the colonies based on resources they have, predict. There's our level 4 question. Prompt, rather. Predict what type of economy each region would have most likely. You have 3 choices here: farming, trading, or manufacturing. You're going to have to decide which of these types of economies each has. So in other words, I believe New England would have a blank economy. You need to choose which one and then explain why. When you make your explanation, because it can't be because that's what the map says, or because that's what I say so, or because it is what it is. You need to be detailed and look at what the map is telling you. Okay? Are there any questions right now? This is what you're working on tomorrow when we do not meet. We do not meet live tomorrow. This is what you're going to work on for tomorrow and have this ready when we meet Thursday live. Okay? So, any questions?